Invitamos a continuación al presidente ejecutivo de Amex Gas de México, el señor Carlos Serrano, quien nos hablará sobre la experiencia regulatoria de México y su impacto en la regulación de los precios del gas LP. Le damos la más cordial bienvenida. A continuación invitamos a la señora Esther Busscher, quien es líder de Asuntos Públicos, Estratégicos y Desarrollo Sostenible de SHV Energy de Bélgica. Le damos la más cordial bienvenida.
Vale, buenas tardes a todos y particularmente muchas gracias a Alejandro Martínez y todos los miembros de GASNOVA para invitarme, pero también para tener la confianza y la paciencia de participar, ya que desafortunadamente voy a continuar mi presentación en inglés. Yo sé escuchar un poquito en español, pero hablar es una otra cosa. En mi casa es al revés con mis dos hijos de 13 y 15 años de escuchar y hablar. Pero si me permite, el año próximo vuelvo y les prometo que hago todo en español, completamente. Y a mí me da igual dónde. Aquí en la bonita ciudad de Bogotá o en Cartagena o quizás en una zona rural, ya que quisiera verdaderamente descubrir la Colombia. Vale. Por esta tarde, for this particular part, I'm just going to briefly introduce who we are and therefore why I am on this stage and sharing our views and experiences with you here in this Congress. Also giving you context on the situation, the context in which we operate in different markets, as we are a local market player. And finally, the bread and butter of this session, what is our role in the energy transition, not just as a company, but particularly as a broader industry. So, ¿quiénes somos? ¿Sí? Let's continue in English. Who are we? So, I'm part of an international company based in the Netherlands. So personally, I'm based in Belgium, but SHV Energy is based in the Netherlands. We are a decentralized energy provider across many markets. We particularly distribute LPG, increasingly bio-LPG, and also some LNG in certain markets. We've also started to roll out bio-LPG, and we have a third pillar of our own energy transition, which is related to renewable solutions. But maybe first more on where we are, because that's one of the reasons that I have the pleasure to be with you here today, is we have a global footprint, and amongst others, a very strong footprint in Europe. And I think when it comes to the energy transition, often Europe is referred to as a key example. And I've had the honor, but also the big responsibility for the last 4 years to have been the president of the European Association, Liquid Gas Europe. And in that perspective, I'm able also to give you some key takeaways and some lessons learned from there. But as you can also see, we are also active in North America as well as in Brazil. And mis estimados compañeros de Supergas Bras are here in front. So we do have a sense of what's going on globally, and that's also one of the reasons why we are active within the WLPGA, or the World LP Gas Association, as you call it. Because I have the responsibility to support Michael Kelly and the members of the WLPGA as the industry chair for advocacy, because I think with all the many examples that we've seen here today, some good, some challenging, that we can definitely learn from each other, and we need to learn from each other, and we need to have that steep learning curve. So now you know who we are and where we are operating and why I'm here sharing our insights. And how do we do that? Well, we really want to do that together. Our motto is advancing energy together, not just within our companies and within our local business units, but also with broader stakeholders. And that's why these type of platforms are extremely important, and I'm very impressed to see the different non-industry speakers that we've had here already today at this conference. So our energy transition consists of 3 pillars. The first pillar is LPG and LNG. It's indeed moving people along to cleaner solutions, and that's why I really love the theme of this Congress in terms of a cleaner energy today and tomorrow. The second pillar of our energy transition is focused on the non-fossil new fuels, but don't get me wrong, it's the non-fossil fuels for our existing customers, for our existing infrastructure, and also for the existing assets at our end, but also at the end of our customer base, because we want to make this energy transition real and practical. And the third area of our energy transition is focused on renewable solutions. And for our company, that focuses firstly on distributed solar in India, and secondly on energy efficiency services, starting in Europe, in Ireland. Energy efficiency services might sound a bit broad or vague. What does it mean? It means advising high energy intensive industries on how they can reduce, but also decarbonize and defossilize, but also lower their energy bill, which is a big driver for them as well. Now, why do we do that? We are a company, after all. We are a privately owned company, and above all, we are a family-owned business. In 1896, we started as SHV, and the S stands for the Dutch word for coal, steenkool. So in 1896, we started as a coal distributor. So we've done it before. We've pivoted from coal to distributing oil, and then from oil to LPG. And why do we do that? Because we believe that as industry, we need to have the courage to care about our people, which includes our employees, but also our customers and our local communities, about our planet, and we'll talk about that more particularly in the rest of the panel, and also in terms of how we do it, and we need to deliver on it. And now, what you are probably most curious on, what are the lessons learned from Europe? Because that has been the context that I was asked to reflect on particularly. But I'm not here to give you a lecture. I'm not trained to do that on EU policies or on legislation. I just wanted to give you this overview to give you a sense of how fast things can go. Because back before 2020, we had the 2020 targets in Europe. It was 20% reduction of CO2 emissions, 20% share of renewable energy, and 20% improvement in energy efficiency. But Europe admittedly achieved that very rapidly and before target. And that's why they came up with the 2030 climate and energy framework, where more ambitious targets were set in terms of 40% CO2 emissions and a 32% share in renewables and even more improvement in energy efficiency. Then we have a new European Commission with Ursula von der Leyen, who saw that things were not going entirely to plan. And that's why they came up with something that was called the Green Deal, that got a lot of attention in the various media outlets and is really looked at by other governments as well. And the Green Deal basically meant the ambition for Europe to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050. But they're not going to leave it to chance. No, they've actually put it into law, into what they call the climate law, which also includes an intermediate target of an even steeper 55% reduction of CO2 emissions by 2030. Subsequently, things have been accelerating in Europe. And I'm going to move forward a little bit. On the left-hand side, you see a summary of what was called the Fit for 55 package. It was a package of proposals in terms of how we're going to get to the 55% reduction. And in order to do that, they actually came up with for instance, the extension of the EU emissions trading scheme, the EU ETS. And as of 2027, it will also include buildings, heating and buildings, as well as transport. But time is ticking, elections are coming up in Europe, and that's why already this summer we've had a consultation on a 2040 climate target. Because on the renewable side, Europe is on track, on the CO2 emission side, it's not. And that's why they want to give this an additional push. So you see here a bandwidth of 65% to even 90+%. And the European LPG Association, Liquid Gas Europe, also participated in this consultation. And we'll see what it brings early next year. But then policy is not made in a vacuum, things happen. The invasion of the Ukraine has led to Europe reconsidering its energy policies and decided to actually give it another boost. And that's why the Repower EU initiative went for even steeper targets and steeper rollouts. So, what does that mean to us as an LPG or liquid gas industry? It means that, for instance, we as a company have really been focusing on continuing to drive our role in the energy transition. And I was really happy to see two colleagues of the SMP team already referring to the energy ladder principle, because that's exactly what we are doing. But this works for us as a company, and we follow the societal and environmental debates and policies closely. But what does it mean more broadly and globally for our industry? There are three things I want to leave you with today for the panel discussion. First of all, our role as an industry is really to help our customers climb the energy ladder. For instance, as part of the Green Deal and all those proposals in Europe, there have been initiatives to phase out gas boilers from the heating perspective, for instance. But actually, it leaves the consumers with a gap in terms of how. All this push for the electrification of everything, it doesn't work everywhere and it doesn't work for everyone. And that's why, for instance, you already see that in Italy and in Germany and in France, consumer groups and citizens are already pushing back because they have no clue how to get there in an affordable way. And in many communities, and especially the rural communities where often the homes are older and less well insulated, people are wondering, am I heating or am I eating? Manger ou chauffer, as they say in French. And that's where we have the last mile. We know our customers, and we know how we can help them. But it also means the citizens that currently do not have access to clean energy yet, that we should also help them climb that energy ladder. And that's where LPG today, and in the future, defossilized and renewable off-grid gases also play a role. The second thing I want to leave you with is that within the energy transition debate, but also in its reality, we really need to strike the right energy balance. So on the one hand, you may be familiar with the energy trilemma, which has energy security, affordability, and sustainability, and with energy efficiency at the heart of it. But that is no longer enough. And I think the theme of the GASNOVA conference and this morning's sessions, with also senators emphasizing es la deforestation, it is also about what's happening outside and the responsibility that we need to take there, also for the environments in which our customers live. So let's, in the discussion also today, I think, go beyond the carbon, go beyond the CO2, and then think about our role in the striking the right energy balance when it comes to these type of dimensions. And then finally, a transition sounds like something that's passing. No, we need to think about what is our role in the new energy system of the future. And it's going beyond just the fuel. It is about providing solutions for sustainable energy transitions. And I'm sorry, Michael, I've stolen that from the WLPJ action plan of this year, because it indicates that it depends on the local situation, the local energy mix, the local needs, climate, what we can provide. as an energy community. So to give a few examples of what the right mix would look like, it's, for instance, partnering with intermittent renewables. I think something like that already came up earlier today. Combination with LPG and solar thermal, for instance, it's a no-brainer. But it's also about our role in the energy system to alleviate the electricity grids, which are increasingly strained with all the new renewable electricity being put on the grid. People in countries in Europe which never experience blackouts will now actually have to take that into consideration. And we have been approached as an industry in various European markets actually by the grid operators saying, actually, could you help us to alleviate the grid? So let's put more things into perspective in terms of the electrify everywhere, everything. No, it really depends on where it adds the most value and also where the electricity is renewable, because we also need to look at that factor in terms of how that electricity is currently produced. Part of that technology mix is also on the including the hybrid solutions. And that's where new technologies come in. And again, we are very well placed to partner with, for instance, heat pumps, because full electric heat pumps do not work that well when it's very cold and your house is badly insulated in rural areas, for instance. And in that particular case, combining it with an LPG boiler today and a bio-LPG boiler tomorrow is a very good option. Putting energy efficiency first is a no-brainer. The easiest CO2 emissions are the ones that you avoid, that you don't emit. And I think in one of our panelists will talk a bit more about developing the non-fossil alternatives. But again, these are the non-fossil alternatives that we can deliver to our customers so that we don't leave them behind in this energy transition. And then finally, indeed, leaving no one behind is, I think, a real important theme. And therefore, I'm also very happy that the theme of the next joint European and global World Congress in Rome in November this year actually is a just energy. And with that in mind, I finally want to invite you to advance energy together and see how we can make this energy transition with the right balance real together. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion.